June 13th, 2023 regular meeting of the Board of Education. We are your Northville Board of Education. We are so honored and happy to be here tonight. We are joined by your Superintendent of Schools, Dr. R.J. Weber. Fantastic Colt team here in front, the best team in the business in our estimation. I also want to give a couple of thanks here to the Ed Tech team and Ms. Irving for setting us up, as always, so well tonight. This is a big night for us. We have a lot on the agenda. We have retirement recognitions. We have Representative Matt Kolazar here in the room. I wish I could say that Taylor Swift had stayed over from her stay and she was here in the audience, but she is not. But without further ado, if you would rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much for that. That brings us to our agenda items. Our roll call. Dr. Campbell-Voitel, please.
We'd be happy to do so. President Lindsay Wilson.
Here.
Vice President Sarah Prescott.
Here.
Treasurer Lisa McIntyre.
Here.
Trustee Jim Misberg is excused. Trustee Karen Meyer.
Here.
Trustee Melissa Stewart.
Here.
And Secretary Kim Campbell-Voitel. I am here.
Thank you so much. That brings us to number 4 on our agenda, the adoption of our agenda. Ms. Prescott, would you do the honor?
Hi, everyone. This is motion 116, and I would just move that the board adopt the agenda as presented.
Support.
So I have a motion properly presented by Ms. Prescott and supported by Dr. Campbell-Voitel. Do we need any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Thank you so much for that. That brings us to number 5, our consent resolutions. Ms. Prescott, would you do the honors, please?
Sure. I would move that the board accept the consent agenda items for approval as presented. 5A, minutes of the June 6, 2023 Board of Education meeting. 5B, minutes of the June 6, 2023 closed session meeting of the Board of Education. 5C, overnight and or out-of-state field trip requests. 1, Meads Mill School 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C. from May 15th to 17th, 2024. 2, the NHS French class trip to Paris, Chamonix, and Nice, France from June 18th to the 29th, 2024. Yes, please. Number 3, the NHS Girls Cross Country Camp in Glen Arbor, Michigan from August 15th to the 18th, 2023. 4, the NHS Pompon Camp in Grand Rapids, Michigan from June 19th to 23rd, 2023. And if we weren't done with them yet, Traveling Mustangs trip to Greece and Italy from June 15th to the 24th, 2024, along with number 6, NHS Varsity Football Camp in Bluffton, Ohio from July 18th to the 20th, 2023. 5D is our 23-24 MASA dues, which total $2,202.62. 5E is our 2023-2024 MASB annual renewal total, $9,573.37. 5F, 23-24 Wayne Westland Cooperative Agreement. G, our 23-24 Cooperative Education Program Agreement, Special Education Livonia Transition Program. 5H, the 23-24 MHSAA membership. 5I, the benchmark education decodable reader sets for kindergarten and first graders. And 5J, bill warrants totaling $1,240,509.97.
Support.
Thank you so much. So I have a motion properly presented by Ms. Prescott and supported by Dr. Campbell-Voitel. For folks in the public, these consent resolution items are items that we've discussed in the past in previous board meetings or in subcommittee, and there is generally no further need to discuss them here tonight. Do we need any discussion on these items? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So that passes. Thank you so much. And that brings us quickly to number 6 on our agenda. That is our communications. Dr. Campbell-Voitel.
Yes. President Wilson, we've had 2 communications, one through the NPSBOE at northvilleschools.org, and the other is the monthly report coming to us from Northville Youth Network.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That brings us to number 7. Dr. Weber.
Yes, President Wilson, if I may ask for just a minute prior to your introduction for the legislative update.
Absolutely.
So I struggle, just so you all know, I could literally every week come here and for 30 minutes regale you with the absolute awesomeness of your kids, our families, accomplishments, and so on. However, tonight especially is a night that focuses on people who are either leaving, I think, one of the most beautiful professions in the world. No offense to any of you who aren't teachers, but I'm kind of biased, or have given significant service. But I would be remiss not to mention that our boys golf team won the Division I state championship for the first time. So Representative Colzar, you now represent a D1 winner in golf, 2 strokes over a 2-day tournament. And then we also had, that's our 3rd state championship team this year. We also had cross country winning a state championship, rowing winning a state championship, 3 state runner-up, and a 4x800 team that set the Michigan record in that race. This is all just this year. This is amazing. And then tomorrow night, we still have 1 team in the mix. So our women's soccer team will be playing in Grand Ledge tomorrow night against Hudsonville, I believe. So I just had to say those things before we got moving here on all of this other good stuff, because it's easy sometimes when you have this level of success to take it for granted. And I'm just here to tell us all and remind us all that we should never take these type of successes for granted. It's amazing. Many of the teachers in this room, I'm sure when they see the pictures of those kids and their success, remember them from being in your classrooms way upstream. So thank you for that. That's all I have, President Wilson. And I know you have a special guest tonight.
We do have a special guest tonight, and we will welcome him now. This is our House Representative, Matt Colzar, from the 22nd District of Michigan, and he has graciously offered to be here tonight, and we are all looking forward to our to the update. Is your microphone on, Andrew, maybe?
Okay, this one works. First of all, thank you very much for having me. It's good to see all of you. It's good to see everybody. What a night to come to. I'm like, wow, do all school board meetings start with a party like this? This is pretty cool. But thank you again for having me. I want to give you a quick update from Lansing, and then I want to have the opportunity to answer any questions you may have. I want to start with what I think is first and foremost on most people's minds, which is the budget. I would say that if the budget were a baseball game, we're in about the 7th or 8th inning at this point. We're hoping to have a finalized budget to the governor by the end of this month, which when you're in public education, no one loves getting one in October for how you're going to do September through June. So we want to have one to you by the end of next week. And I think you're going to be really encouraged with a lot of what you see. First of all, let's talk about foundation per pupil allowance. The minimum I believe you will see, and again, this is still all being negotiated, the minimum is a $366 per pupil increase. The maximum is probably about $450 per pupil. The other thing that first time in history is fully funding special education with the foundation allowance. What that means is, the multiplier we use now is off of 80% of the foundation allowance. Multiply it goes above. Now we're going to base it off of 100% of the foundation allowance. So this will be the highest special education funding in Michigan's history. So very excited about that. In addition, you're going to see universal school meals has been talked about a lot. This is something I would be shocked if it didn't happen. And when people ask me about what's the need, we have free and reduced lunch programs. That is true, but there is a stigma attached to free and reduced lunch. A lot of kids are embarrassed when it comes to it. They may skip meals instead. And also there's a lot of kids that just fall through the cracks. If you're being neglected, something like that, you may not qualify, but you're also not eating. This guarantees that kids get those 2 meals when they're at school, and that means they can focus on their studies. In addition to that, increased funding for at-risk students as well. So in addition to all kinds of different programs, those are some of the major ones that I always like to touch, but the biggest thing is you are absolutely going to see more funding coming into Northville, which is exciting for all of us. On the policy side, because I'm also the House Education Chair, so plenty going on there. We just passed a bill unanimously today, which I'm excited about, which gets rid of the Labor Day waiver requirement.
Yeah.
So if you have, is there a third one? Just not kidding. If the school district ends up negotiating it out where you want to start before Labor Day, that is an option. You don't have to fill out a waiver with the state anymore. Let local school districts decide what needs are best for their students in their communities. That passed out of House Education unanimously today. In addition, we've passed some things into law. One that I know, Dr. Weber, you were up testifying for about the sinking fund millage being able to include transportation costs. That has already been signed into law. The A through F accountability system, you may have heard that in the news. That was my bill. That has been repealed because all that really did, first of all, it didn't meet federal standards for an accountability system, which we have the statewide index that does. So having a duplicative system that doesn't meet federal standards didn't make a whole lot of sense. And it was overly reliant on standardized testing. Having two systems, one that doesn't meet federal standards, one that does, you get rid of the one that doesn't meet federal standards. So that was repealed. In addition to that, the retention piece in the third grade reading law was also repealed. That was a Senator Polhanke bill that has already been signed into law as well. Some other things that we are working on are teacher and administrator evaluations, which I'm really encouraged about because that one, when we do finally get the ball rolling on that one, we've really taken the time to have conversations with teacher groups, with administrator groups, with school boards. We're trying to get the full picture here to really get something that is constructive and not just simply a hoop to jump through that really doesn't do anybody any good. So that's something we are still very much working on as well. And with that, I don't want to spend the whole time talking. I know we put me during superintendent's report so I can answer your questions, so I'd be happy to take any questions. I know I just rifled through a ton. Oh, actually, one more thing. Sorry. 9-month waiting period. So essentially, for anyone that doesn't know, when you retire from public schools, you have to sit out for 9 months before you can come back. And if you come back before that, you could risk your pension. What actually a bill that I just introduced today does says you can come back within that 9-month window, and you can earn up to $10,000 per calendar year. The catch is once you're done, the 9-month clock starts over again. So who does that affect? Let's say you're a coach and you want to still coach, even though you're retiring from teaching. You can still come back and coach and not worry about your pension. You can substitute teach. Maybe you want to be a special education consultant and you can help write IEPs. Maybe you want to be a part-time bus driver or custodian. These are all things that are fair game, or parapro. It gets all those people back into the classroom. That bill still could change a little bit. I just introduced it today. If we can make it better, I'm all for it. We're still working through that, but this at least gets it started. That's a big issue up in Lansing, talking about it a lot. So just want to give you that update as well. Now I'd be happy to take any questions. And I could keep going, so don't give me too much time without asking questions.
I have one. So you mentioned that our foundation allowance per pupil, 366.
366 minimum, 450 maximum increase coming.
Yeah. What's the trend been? Last year, I mean, we were discussing in before meeting that it was 350 or so last year, the increase. What's the trend been? And what's driving, the increases in funding from your perspective? What's resonating?
So the trend has been good. The trend has been upward. I would say over the last 4 years, we have seen it go up dramatically. And what that is from 2005 to 2015, Michigan ranked dead last in school funding growth in the entire country. So we had a lot of making up to do, and there has been an increased emphasis and priority placed on this. So I think that's been the big difference. But what I would also say to that too is we're still not there yet. If you look at research from the School Finance Research Collaborative, we still aren't there yet where we need to be, but we are getting ever so closer. We're also getting much closer to equitable funding. In addition to that, again, these special education and at-risk student increases in funding are major for our most vulnerable kids.
I know you don't have a crystal ball, but what's your best guess at how we should look at the next couple of years? We're jazzed about this year, but how should we think about the bigger picture going forward?
It'll be interesting to see once we know what our budgets look like in future years. Obviously, they'll tell. I think that a lot of what I've noticed about a budget is where do you put priorities? And right now, the current legislature puts a massive priority on public education. So will the increase be as dramatic next year? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But even then, you certainly will never see a cut. And I don't think you're going to stay stagnant. So we're still trying to get to that SFRC recommendation, which is going to require more increases.
So another concern that we have is with the teacher education pipeline. Do you have any levers available to you to help us with that?
That's a good question. So one thing we actually passed out of the Senate and passed out of committee in the House, is just got to go to the House floor, where I'm very confident the governor will sign it, would create a teacher reciprocity system with other states, which says if you have 3 years of positive teaching experience in another state, you don't need to retake the Michigan teacher test for certification. We'll just get you in. So that's one thing we're doing. We've also got a lot of grow your own programs that are going around the state. If you're a parapro that wants to become a teacher, giving assistance to get them the college courses they need to then become a teacher and not have to go back to school, or you have to go back to school, you don't have to pay all that money. So, we find that if you're a parapro that wants to become a teacher and we can give you the tools you need to go back to school, we all know that those adults who have been with our kids for years and years and who understand the culture of a school district, who have been there, are going to then equate to being the best teachers. So we're working on a lot of grow your own programs as well.
Thank you for coming. We talk more than just here, but I think it's great for you to talk in front of folks. And I've expressed to you for years, and I appreciate you listening, the concern that with the grandfather districts and the built-in disparity that Michigan law has perpetuated between the kind of the haves and the have-nots. I'm wondering if you see these increases. Am I correct that they continue to close the gap, right?
Yes, we're getting close. We're closer to equitable funding than we've been since before.
For sure, and as long as I've been on the board. So really, really appreciate seeing that. Do you see that closing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, how long it takes to get to like all
Is
in
it-
sync, that's going to be a while,
Yeah,
but we
that's-
get closer with each time. And this one, I think, is the closest yet.
Yeah, I mean, we are close. What are we, like, $400 or $500, $600 from some of the other districts? Yeah, with the, like, if we get another 350. Yeah. So that's really, really important, and we really thank you. Another issue that, sort of like what's next, I'm wondering about support for pre-K and whether pre-K would be mandated. I know that was, making its way around Lansing. I don't know where it landed.
So we're still very much looking at universal pre-K, and what you're seeing, there's a lot of increased funding for GSRP and getting those GSRP programs up and going with the tools they need to. The big kind of hole in it right now, though, is kindergarten is not mandated in the state of Michigan.
Yes.
So until you mandate kindergarten, how do you have universal pre-K? But also mandating kindergarten, what I'm discovering is it's trickier than it sounds in certain areas. There's certain areas where they may not have the resources they need to actually mandate kindergarten. So that's still a work in progress. I think doing it right away, I don't know if it happens, but the first thing we're going to do is we want to make sure schools have the resources they need to be able to start these programs if they can't already. That's kind of where we're at right now. But I'd say I think we're going to get there. It's setting up that infrastructure. And also, unfortunately, there's the reality that we do have a massive teacher shortage in the state of Michigan. And you can have universal pre-K, that's great, but if you don't have the teachers to staff what you need, then you're not going to get there. So that's another challenge that we're battling.
Okay. And then last comment I wanted to make, thank you for that, was about teacher evaluations. So for people who don't know, teacher evaluations are required by law, and as are other evaluations within the district, to largely focus on growth as measured by there are different tools that could be used, but as measured by essentially standardized tests. And the difficulty is that when you have kids that are very high achieving, beating the bell curve for kids that are already beating the bell curve can be hard for teachers. And it can cause teachers to, feel that they're able to be highly evaluated and highly regarded within the district is dependent on these paper and pencil, or I guess they were paper and pencil, now they're all computer, but these standardized tests. And I do think we hear from constituents that, they want a holistic view of their kiddo. And I know that pressure on the teachers is pretty, it's, I don't know if it's to say it's not fair. We certainly want to hold teachers accountable for seeing true growth throughout the year. But is there a way to think about things more in the totality of the circumstances, more holistically? We have these incredible building leaders who do very intensive evaluations and coaching of their staff, and they're in these classrooms. Can we trust them to make judgments that are based on more than just one data point, and to take a little bit of the emphasis for the teachers who maybe have a cohort that maybe struggled for a year, or there were a couple of kids that did, and focus that more on the holistic picture of the whole child, rather than these more, checking of a box or numeric. Again, everything in balance, right? We still want to have that accountability piece, but I would just say that we have heard some of that from our constituents.
And I hear it as well. Being the House Ed Chair, while I have my constituency in Northville, Plymouth, and Livonia, I talk to teachers all around the state and administrators all around the state. There is an evaluations overhaul coming. And while it's not finalized yet, some things I can tell you, the 40% student growth data based on standardized testing alone is going to be no more. And obviously that data is still available, but to use it in evaluation, when you're evaluating a social studies teacher on these other tests that have nothing to do with it, or you're giving them data that they can never use, that's not going to make them a better teacher. Some other things that we're looking at is if you are going from the 4 effective levels where you're ineffective, minimally effective, highly effective, going down to 3. Effective and highly effective causes massive division within schools. It really doesn't mean a whole lot. So going down to 3. And if you're the highest effective level, you only have to get evaluated. After you do it 3 consecutive times, you only need to get evaluated every 3 years. That's going to free up our administrators to do a lot of the work, because there's a lot of times our administrators, they want to be running their buildings, and instead they're dropping in 15 minutes for a teacher they know is excellent, but they have to check that box. In addition to that, we're also looking at, I know there's more to this. Those are the kind of the big highlights. I know there's one I'm missing off the top of my head. But at the end of the day, the goal is it's just, quite frankly, it's going to be a bargainable subject too. So we can let local districts, local teachers, local administrations talk about what is the best way we can do this to make sure we're actually lifting up our teachers that need support, and also not just creating a checking of the box for those that don't necessarily need as much support. That's the other thing. If you go to triennial for the highest effective teachers, it gives your administrators time to work with those who need the most help. And I think that's important too.
I have one more. Anybody else?
I had one.
Go ahead, yeah.
Thanks so much for being here. My question generally circles around mental health and funding that might be available for schools. We know that younger kids are struggling with, all of the mental challenges that maybe are related to pandemic and all of those. We're just seeing more of that, right? More behavioral problems. So curious to know kind of where the legislature is at in terms of maybe grant funding or other funding sources that aren't related to the per pupil foundation allowance.
There's going to be substantial opportunities for different grants to apply for various mental health programs. I think it's fair to say there's not just one one lane you can take on that, right? There's different needs depending on where you are, what the need of the child is. There's going to be various programs, but you are going to see, when we say there's increased funding for mental health, there is, but it's across so many different categories. I can't specify into one, but you're going to see a lot of opportunities for that.
Great, thank you.
My curiosity, so we just had a bond, Representative Colzar, and Mike Zoff, our CFO, Rebecca Peck, our head of all things good out of HR there. In our meetings that we had with people, and I think board members would attest to that, the number one question that came up for our team was, what were we going to do to keep our kids safe? And as I know, applied for a grant around SROs, we didn't get a sniff at it because it was snapped up really quickly. Because of the level of need there. So my curiosity is around anything that could be coming down. I'm sure you all were surprised, or maybe not, at how quickly that money evaporated. But what we hear from the people in this particular room, the constituents that our elected board serves, is they are demanding answers around how we're going to keep their kids safe in our current environment. So if you could share anything, what you might see down the road or what we could help you with. This is a community, I can tell you, that would be advocates and allies if you need them to help you to get the resources that their kids deserve.
Well, a couple of things with that. So there's been a lot of conversations about a school safety package, like different bills that we could do. But here's what ultimately is the problem. I've talked to several school districts across the state, and the big thing is, please don't just do one overarching, one-size-fits-all model, because every school district is different. And so we do want to do something, but we're still trying to figure out the best way to do it. Just slapping mandates on school districts, I did not mean to do that. Slapping mandates on school districts is not, just like, you will do these 3 things. Like, you must all have panic alarms in your ID badges, or you must, it may not work for certain schools. So we're trying to weigh what works best for everybody. I think the biggest thing we can do, like the SRO stuff, continue to make resources available. So I think school districts, this is my personal opinion, if you disagree, feel free, should be able to customize what works best for each school district. But we need to make those resources available to you so you can do that, if that makes sense.
I would say we have lots of ways to customize. We just need the money to customize it with.
And I'm happy,
Thank
that as we've been talking about increases in funding. The other thing I will say too, and Dr. Weber, you and I talk all the time. Ideas are always welcome that I can take back to Lansing. You think of the best ways to do it. As a matter of fact, I look at board, I think you all have my phone number. So
Well,
know that
and
my door is
before-
always open to all
I know
of you.
President Wilson has a question, but I just want to thank you publicly. So one of the things that I do on your behalf as a community is I offer our elected officials, if they ever want to ring me up, it could be the day before, the night before, and they have a spare hour of time. They don't want photo ops. They just want to get in and see what we do. This is something that I offer out, and Representative Colzar took me up on that. We went to Meads Mill a month and a half ago or so, and I really am grateful for that. I think that one of the hallmarks of any person, what I hope we try to instill in our students is just to stay curious. Don't think you have it all figured out. Go listen to people, have conversations. And when you had a good 20-minute conversation with our food service staff in the Meads Mill kitchen to get a better understanding of the challenges they face or what they see in our kids, please know, and I'll just say this, like absolutely any elected official, contact me if you want to come and see what we do. I'm really proud of that. And I would love to help just inform the decisions you make, or at least be a conduit for that. So thank you for coming that day.
Well, and just likewise, I appreciate the invitation. Anyone that doesn't know, I think you all know, but anyone who doesn't know, I was a teacher for 12 and a half years. I miss being a teacher all the time. For me, it's a little chicken soup for the soul to be back in the school, just talking to whether it be students, teachers, support staff, whoever it may be, just talking about them about what they need from Lansing, for me, is incredibly beneficial, incredibly helpful. So I appreciate that open door, and I'll probably be asking again in the fall once we come back. So.
Well, thank you again for coming. And I really am excited about a lot of what you said, because a lot of this directly benefits kids, and that's wonderful. Something that's been on my mind lately is about, and definitely physical safety is very important, but I'm also wondering about cyber safety for our students, particularly around, that's been increasing districts that have been held for ransom. And I don't know if that's anything that you feel that we could do at the state level to protect student data, or does that have to be federal?
I don't have an answer for that. I would be happy to look into it, but I don't know. Honest answer, I don't know. But you're right, it is a major problem. I think there's certain things we can do at the state level in terms of making sure that various departments can safeguard that information, but I'd have to get back to you on actual tangible what we could do.
You mentioned the massive kind of teacher shortage, right? That we're sort of seeing now and that we see on the horizon. You talked about, obviously increased funding, changing the way we do evaluations potentially, teacher reciprocity from state to state. The shortage piece, do you feel like that shortage, the fact of that shortage is kind of resonating with the legislature, right? I know it's resonating with you, right? You're the House Education Chair, you're a former teacher, but do you think the folks that you work with in Lansing understand that? And aside from the things that you talked about, what are the big picture things that you really think need to change in order to affect that?
So I think it is resonating. There's a lot of conversations about it. I think that you're looking at a career, when you look at teaching, it was beaten down for a number of years, unfairly villainized for a number of years. And a lot of people, it was almost like, well, if you don't like it, you can quit. And a lot of people said, okay, fine, and call the bluff. And so I think there's no one way we can fix the teacher shortage. I think it's multiple ways. For example, I'm working on a bill right now that's not ready. One of the things that I think hurt, if you look at the long-term stability for teachers, is the pension system got closed, essentially, where if you're a new teacher and you want to be in the Pension Plus system, which financially was solvent, the legislature closed it in 2018 and says you have to opt into the pension system in the first 3 months or you're out for life. And the problem with that is when you're 23 years old and you're a first-year teacher in a brand new school, you've got a lot on your mind. And you might not be thinking about that. So I'm working on a bill that rather than having you have to opt into the pension system, it would make it so you would opt out instead. If you want to go the 401k model, that's fine. But it would actually encourage you to stay in the pension system. Why is that important? Because to get vested in the pension system, you got to stay in the same school district. I think we are seeing a lot of school districts, they're losing their first, second, third-year teachers to other school districts. That's not good for kids. This is a way to keep them there and also help them in their long-term gains. It's something that doesn't get talked about a lot, but I think it's important. So that's one thing. Obviously, when we increase funding, it enables schools to pay their teachers. That is important. We need to, I always say, like, look, the teachers are there for the kids, but at the end of the day, they still have to be able to pay their mortgage and put food on the table. If you don't allow for that, at some point, the rubber's going to meet the road here. So, that's just a couple of extra things in addition to other things I've been talking about. I think I always say you can have all the pipelines you want, but if the pipelines are dry, it's not going to do you any good.
I'd just like to make
Sure.
a comment. I've been tangentially keeping track of what was going on the Mackinac policy weekend, and I know that there is a grave concern about the declining population in the state. Now, of course, we're concerned about that because, a declining population is equal to, loss of student population. But there's a lot of really smart people up in Lansing trying to think about how to turn the corner on that. And I just believe that one of the factors is not only, economic, business, job opportunity, but it's also the quality of the educational system that attracts residents to come and want to raise their families here, or our kids, to keep our kids in this state. So as we're in the education game, and we think we make an important contribution to solving that population problem. We want just remember that all of the value that you're making sure come to quality education in this state also is going to have a positive effect on the overall quality of life in the state, business, success, economic, the universities, research and development, all of that. So we're glad to be part of that answer, and it's just my little speech. I think, it's all connected, isn't it?
Absolutely, it is.
Can I just jump off that for a second and just offer, we had a business move in. I don't know if people saw that building that got built by the facility on 7 Mile. What was it called? Was it Standard Cooper? It's right by the facility on 7 Mile, kind of almost to Haggerty. And we reached out, and we knew that they were moving their national headquarters to Northville. And so we reached out to them and said, hey, the schools here are wonderful. We welcome you. How can we help? I think we got the mayor and the township supervisor to sign on. And I would just say that with regard to recruitment of business to your district, we would be happy to partner with rolling out that red carpet and welcoming, companies that might be interested in looking at Northville, looking at, this community for moving jobs here, for moving families here. If there's something that we can do to welcome people and let them know who we are and what we offer and, how rich the programming here is, we can't necessarily, you might get wind that, there's a beauty contest going on or that there might be people interested in moving in. If that happens, I guess I think I'd probably speak for all of us in saying, we would be happy as a board to, kind of participate or welcome businesses to the community as well. So that's an opportunity that I think we could do better at and do more of. They don't have to be big. They can be, small businesses too, but please let us know that, because I think we'll be happy. And
we're
one
on the
other
same
thing,
team with that.
you worked with me and we worked for years. There's a parent in our community who worked to get the left turn signal, Matt. Thank you. The left turn signal at Haggerty and 6 Mile, so that our kids who are going to high school, there are like dozens and dozens of car accidents in that intersection, and it's coming. And I know you and I worked on that, like going back to 2019 or 20, because a parent in the community really raised that and lifted that up. So thank you for your help with that, with the state.
Yes.
Appreciate the partnership. And I have to segue into this, and then I promise I'll let you all get on with your meeting at some point. Talking about traffic safety, this is not necessarily directly education related, but I feel it's important to point out to anybody that I can talk to about this. I just had a bill signed into law last week that makes Michigan the 26th hands-free state in the country. And what that means is simple. When you are driving, you do not have the cell phone in your hand. If you have a CarPlay or Android Auto, you can use that. If you have a car mount, you can do that, use single tap functions, but you cannot have your phone in your hand while you are driving. Why am I mentioning this at a school board meeting? Because disproportionately, it affects younger drivers than anybody else. So when we think about, you talked about the safety of that green arrow also, keeping kids' cell phones out of their hands while they're driving also is important. In fact, 4th of July weekend statistically is the deadliest weekend for distracted driving accidents, and it officially goes into effect on June 30th. But again, I say this all to say, it disproportionately affects our youngest drivers. I think about the kids coming out of the high school It affects them more than it affects any other age group. So just an important update to give as well, because as of June 30th, that becomes law where you can't get a ticket if you're on your cell phone in your hand while you're driving.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Yep,
Yeah,
thank you
no,
for
let's give
having
a
me.
round of applause. Thank you. Well, I believe that takes us to your full report or ABCD awards.
ABCD.
All right, well, I am the leader of our policy and HR subcommittee. And a while back, we decided that we could do more to lift up people in our community, especially our staff, with regard to their different contributions to the district. And we decided to carry that forward with something that we call our ABCD Awards. And tonight, we're very excited because we get to give several of them, and I'm going to kick us off. So Ms. Caudill, if you could come up. I see you back there, and I get to start. All right, so Ms. Caudill was lifted up by a student, and I think her parent helped her out because the parents, the sentiment was as follows, that Ms. Caudill goes above and beyond every day by being kind to every person. When I first started kindergarten at Ammerman Elementary School, she made me feel comfortable. She stands outside and greets people in the morning. She asks how your day is. She comes to your class every morning to say good morning. She does principal awards. She brightens my day. For my friend, if he's having a bad day, she propagates plants with him because he likes plants. She greets us at lunchtime and tells us to have a good lunchtime. She is one of my best friends and makes Ammerman a great school. Now, that was the words of a little one, but I have had the opportunity and the pleasure to also be a parent in the school. And Ms. Caudill, I could have written my own ABCD award with sentiments that supplemented these, individualized care and attention at the level of, a third parent, seeing a kid, really seeing them. Going acres but beyond, bending over backwards when circumstances made for a little bit of a tough year with a teacher that had a transition. Creating a community out of a school that has Alps in it, and knitting that together. Coming into this role, you're one of our, newer principals, and coming into this role following a couple of different transitions that were happening into this community. There are so many different things I could say, but I just, how do you beat a little one saying she is one of my best friends? But, from the bottom of my heart, I've seen it, and I rush to put my name next to this award, and I really want to thank you for all you do for our kids.
All right, I think I have the next one. Is Heather Zoldak here in the building? Oh, she is. All right. All right. Okay, so Miss Zoldak is a kindergarten teacher at Ridgewood. She's been nominated by a parent. Miss Zoldak goes above and beyond daily for her kindergartners at Ridgewood. Her kindness, patience, and enthusiasm has made my child's school year a pleasant experience. My child has made such great progress academically with her as a teacher. We especially appreciated that she made personalized blankets for the children as a holiday gift. Miss Zoldak is one of a kind. So thank you.
Great, I'm going to hustle back.
I have the next one too. All right. Is Jenny Willerer in the house? She's a second grade teacher at Winchester. Miss Willerer has been nominated by a coworker who says that she is an exceptional educator who cares for and supports each and every student to cross her path. Her love for our littlest learners goes way beyond teaching the curriculum and isn't limited by performance or need. She models kindness, grace, empathy, and strength in all aspects of her day, understanding that what is in a child's heart is just as important as what is in a child's brain. So thank you very much, Miss Willerer.
All right, I get to give our next award to Carrie Couchman. I don't think Carrie's here. All right. So Miss Couchman was lifted up in gratitude by a student. She said, she offers wonderful insights and knowledge as an educator and is my go-to for book recommendations. She revived my love of reading. She also exhibits true kindness and patience toward her students in the safe space of her classroom and provides a listening ear, giving her full attention to students when they choose to approach her. Ms. Couchman has helped me greatly, the student writes, through personal struggles and offers warmth and advice, nuggets of wisdom. With her clear communication of boundaries, I've never felt like a bother or burden when approaching her. In fact, she's got a knack for dispelling that doubt and awkwardness with some much appreciated humor, which is one of her many admirable qualities. All of her efforts have made a huge difference in my mental well-being and growth, as well as my overall perception of existence itself. Thanks to her support over the last few months, I am now able to navigate the ups and downs of life with a clearer mind and a calm place I know I can always go to. Wow. Wow. And not only was that an amazing thought, but how well was that written? I didn't make that up. So obviously her teaching skills are right there in line with her incredible support of these kiddos. And for that, we thank you, Ms. Couchman.
Well, I have the good fortune to read about Mr. Galvin. Is Mr. Galvin here today? Well, Mr. Galvin works at food service at Moraine, and we are so fortunate to have people like him that, feed the kids. You can't learn when you're hungry, and a lot of times it's the kid's favorite part of the day. And he's part of the reason why at Moraine, because the parent says he goes above and beyond every day. Mr. Misch is always so friendly and serves every lunch at Moraine. He provides lunch when a student forgets. I don't know how he can serve all the lunches so quick and efficiently. Every morning he's in the kitchen cutting fresh fruit and vegetables. We are very lucky to have Mr. Misch at Moraine. So thank you, Mr. Misch. And also from Moraine, I get to speak about Ms. Clark. Is Ms. Clark from Moraine here? Well, Ms. Clark is the administrative assistant at Moraine, and she was also nominated by a parent who says that Ms. Clark always goes above and beyond for our Moraine community. She seems to know the needs of every parent, student, and family. She is incredibly organized and always remains calm in the most hectic of situations, including the first and last days of school. Oftentimes, with our family's hectic and ever-changing schedule, who can relate to that, we have made last-minute requests to change pickup plans. With Ms. Clark's help, we have always been successful in the communication and execution of these changes. Additionally, I will not forget all the time she assisted the PTA in all our endeavors. Ms. Clark is truly the heartbeat of Moraine. So thank you very much, Ms. Clark.
Now, I purposefully did not pick these because I wanted to make it through this without, breaking down. But I would be remiss if I did not say that I have subbed for Miss Clark before at her desk, and I do not know how she makes it through the day and still remains a calm, pleasant voice on the phone. Every time it rings, when I'm sitting there or when I was sitting there, I got nervous, I got very anxious, and trying to work the all-call system, and oh my goodness. So she's amazing. Shout out to Miss Clark.
That brings us to number 8 on our agenda tonight, our retirement recognition. So I will hand it over to Ms. Prescott to present, please.
Well, I don't really want to bring motion 118. It's a bittersweet moment always to do this, but it's more sweet than bitter. And our board, I will move us to approve our resolution honoring retiring staff members for their years of service to the children, families, and staff of Northville Public Schools. And I think we'll have some recognition of them individually here.
So I bring motion.
So it's motion 118, that the board approve retirement resolutions honoring retiring staff members for their years of service to the children, families, and staff of Northville Public Schools.
Supported.
All right, so I have a motion properly presented by Ms. Prescott and supported by Dr. Campbell-Voitel. Before we get to our roll call vote on this, I think let's hear some wonderful words about these retirees.
Sure. So we actually have a 25-year of service, and then we're going to go ahead and get into the retiree recognition, and we're going to have our building principals do that. But I'm thinking when I'm saying a few words of gratitude, perhaps President Wilson and perhaps Ms. Peck. We have the 25-year service certificates over there on the table. Maybe the two of you could go over there and hand those. And then if we could get Ms. Peck as well, yes, and a picture as they come up. But I want to first thank our HR office and our instruction office and your teams for putting together a beautiful reception. This is not my first year in public education, and that's easily the nicest I've ever seen. The music, everything, classy and respectful. I will say I was having a conversation with one of our 25-year service folks, and I said, the days are long and the years are short. And there's another pithy one I gave you that somebody gave me that I shouldn't probably do here, but it's okay. And it's just, it involves the fact that when you get to these moments and junctures of your life, I'm sure that each of the 6 of you are thinking 25 years how, for those retirees in the room. And I'll say some additional things before we get into the retiree portion, especially that. We start these careers hopeful and feeling like we can make an impact in the world. And I want each of you to know that's how I want you to keep going. If you're a 25-year person in retirement, know the impact that you made. And I'll speak a little bit more to that. But I'd like to say a few words right now. So if Ms. Peck and President Wilson could come over here, and we're going to go ahead right now. And Ms. Brashko, where are you at? Come on down. Come on down. So one of the beautiful aspects here is you are such an amplifier of our district. If you don't follow the Twitter handle, it's Brashko on the Hill. You can follow her there. She is absolutely wonderful in amplifying the good work we do. I know that you've been committed to community service as well here, and I'm sure that will continue. And I just want to thank you so much. And please accept this token of appreciation. If somebody could grab a picture as well, that would be, we got her own personal photographer back here. Thank you very much. I love it. I love people who travel with entourages. Thank you. Mary Buffone. Is Mary with us tonight? Mary. So one of the most telling things here is this is Mike Zoff sent you an email when he found out that you had 25 years of service. And I think if you don't know Mike, a highly respected person here, but just the gratitude that he expressed for your care and what you've done, especially to serve our students who need the most, and your love and care for them and support. And talking with you before, I think you said to me once, there's no place I'd rather be. I love this gig, and it's a good thing. And so thank you so much for what you do on the daily for us. And thank you for being part of our Mustang family. Thank you. All right, we're doing it. Miss Eagle, Jennifer Eagle, come on down. So one thing that, and I've only been here a short time, but that is really obvious is how deeply ingrained Leader in me is in the buildings in our district, the elementary buildings, how our principals, the Wolf Pack, obviously believe in it deeply. But behind the scenes or BTS, what people might not understand is you have to have a lighthouse leader. And you are looking at a lighthouse leader. And that is a person who is willing to, how do you even do this? Kindergarten through fifth grade, get their ideas together, help them realize their ideas. When you walk into TC, your fingerprints are all over it. I can't thank you enough for what you do for our children. And I also believe you do something that I think is one of the most impossible, beautiful jobs in the world that I just can't get my head around. You're a kindergarten teacher. Second grade? So have you ever taught kindergarten? Okay, so you've done it. And that is an art form in every way, shape, or form. So thank you for everything that you've done and you'll continue to do for our children. Thank you. "25 years. Wow. Greg Lindsay, come on down. Always want to do that. So Greg and I were listening to, I don't know if you heard the Ipanema song, right? That was being played by that wonderful piece. And we're talking about music, and we've talked before about just how music is a language. And I've had the privilege to be in your room and to see you teach and to see what you bring out of these students. And middle school is such a pivotal time because a lot of kids, if they don't have a great experience, will drop something that is beautiful that they could pursue their whole life. And so I'm really grateful that kids that matriculate and come through your classroom continue on at the high school with that, and hopefully in their lives, whether it's how they listen to music, how they compose it, how they play it, and it's an absolute gift. And I'm grateful for you because I know the heck that I'm sure that younger kids, as they're learning how to use reeds on instruments, can get a little squeaky. So your patience as well is epic. Thanks for 25 years with us, and can't wait to see what you do going forward. Thank you. And Susan Segerstrom, come on down. So, wow, 25 years in, you think, all right, you've probably seen everything and you kind of know what's going to happen and so on. But I think you were the contortionist of flexibility this year as we've made some moves in language and so on. And I just want to say personally how grateful I am for you in doing so. And the fact that you've served this community and served our kids as well as you have. And really, it's not what we say in life that our kids are watching, it's what we do. It's how we model how we live our lives. In the fact that I believe this is your young man right here, the table. And so your mom modeled extreme flexibility this year to help get to a better end, we believe, for our kids. Look at the smile on your face. That is awesome. You might want to get him up here for the picture with you because that's great. So I want to say thank you very much for everything, especially for working with us as we try to provide paths for our kids that will be good for them. Thank you. Thank you. And finally, Mr. David Wayne, come on down. So one of the joys of real deep personal joy of myself this year, and I think many members of the team I'm privileged to serve beside, is we've been able to teach in classrooms throughout the district this year. And I've been at Ameren quite a bit and just popped in, I think, on a particular day, and you kind of gave me some perspective on things. And this is a theme that I'm building up into as I do a brief introduction for the next part, which is retirement, which is that those things we say and do and the energy we give off, you may not think anything about. But please know that your welcoming nature, how I saw you interacting with the kids, that they were actually running to your room, which I should probably tell them not to run, but it's kind of hard when the kid's running because they're happy to go see their teacher, right? And I have to say thank you, because if that's the juice you've had for 25 years here, that is so good for our community, so good for our kids. And I'm exceptionally grateful. Anytime I see a person in this world who is compassionate, caring, and that these kids gravitate towards, I know that I've met somebody who's made this world a better place. So thank you very much for everything. Thank you. Thank you. And a couple of brief comments, but I just want to make sure that Mr. Koski and Ms. Santer know they're on deck. If you guys want to come back, President Wilson and Ms. Peck will go to the retirement portion of it. Would you like to give the certificates out for the retirement portion, Ms. Peck? No? Okay. Looks like it's me then. Gotcha. Okay, sounds perfect. So this is going to be, I talk about a retrospective. I am sure the people that you're going to learn about tonight that you might not know, that our principals know, that our administrators know. I can't wait to hear these stories and what comes from them. What I'll say is from a poet, Rumi, and he said, "Goodbyes are only for those who love with their eyes. Because for those who love with heart and soul, there's no such thing as separation." For those of you retiring, please understand the lives that you've touched, that you will never know, as we had just mentioned, and the genuine care and empathy you've shown people, and even your colleagues, new teachers who are struggling, that many people in this room or in the world never heard the conversation you had to help them stay in the profession. For kids that may have been on the edge of self-doubt or worry, and your ability to soothe and help them. As Ms. Prescott read the piece from the student, we're obviously producing pretty talented writers and how they communicate with themselves. But in this moment in time, as the days indeed are long and the years are short, I think this puts very much a fine point on it for all of us. As we reflect on how we started our careers and our lives, and now you're at the precipice of something else in another story. So I just want to say thank you to each of the retirees, for me personally, on behalf of our school board, on behalf of this community. Our community public schools are the centers of community. You have been at the epicenter of this community for some time and are now retiring and leaving us, maybe to be the epicenter somewhere else or to continue to do good things. So thank you. So Beth and Tony, if you'd like to come on up, and then you could give them the certificate, and then Ms. Peck and I will take pictures. I can back you up on that. Thank you.
Tonight, Beth Santer and I have the honor and privilege to celebrate 4 NPS retirees: Karen Bessick, Aaron Burke, Julie Jensen, and Susan Pascarella. Congratulations to these 4 elite educators. We already had a gathering at the high school today celebrating these retirees. And one of the gifts each was given was a framed picture with descriptors for each of them. 4 of these descriptors really stood out with this fantastic 4: role models, inspirational, mentors, and countless memories. Between these 4 elite educators is 104 plus total years of serving our kids and students. Karen, check my math, being the retiring math teacher you are, but I believe that's an incredible average of 26 years of being role models, mentors, inspiring, and making lasting positive memories. That needs a round of applause. We could be up here for hours talking about these 3 or 4 retirees, but we're going to recognize them that we recognize tonight. So I'm going to have to use a classroom instructional strategy to honor them and keep it under an hour. I asked colleagues and students about these 3 NHS retirees that I will talk about tonight and what they will miss about the most. and the list was very long. So the instructional strategy I'm going to have to use, you see it used when teachers are reviewing a good piece of literature or a good piece of writing. We're going to summarize in 3 to 5 words or phrases these retirees, but I'm going to have to cheat a little bit. I'm going to move it up to 6, and I'm going to use longer phrases, and rather than words, I'm going to use phrases, longer phrases. So first of all, Karen Bessick, come on up here, right next to me, please. Right here. What students and colleagues will miss about Karen Bessick? Number 1, her incredible math knowledge and how she was able to easily share that knowledge to students and even colleagues and make it fun too. Contagious enthusiasm and positivity, number 2. Number 3, we'll miss and admire her personal connections with the students and staff. 4, her willingness to make us smile and laugh each day, a sneaky sense of humor. Genuine kindness, compassion, and caring, number 5. And number 6, and maybe most importantly, her welcoming ways. Miss Bessick understands and models that relationships must come before learning. Now, prom mom, go enjoy more sleep, do some traveling, and continue to explore those passions, and maybe even find that next career. And don't forget and have some fun by doing that parabola dance now and then. Congratulations, Karen. Miss Burke, come on up. What students and colleagues will miss about Erin Burke: high integrity character person, a true professional who is committed to students. Understanding and empathy for students and parents and colleagues, makes everyone feel comfortable. Number 3, serves others before herself. Number 4, relationships with colleagues, a loyal and trustworthy coworker and friend. Number 5, models an inner strength and positivity no matter what. And number 6, and it's so important, an advocacy for all kids. Now go have some fun watching your Spartans and Zags play hoops, except against the Wolverines, and catch some rodeo too, and most importantly, enjoy your extra time with your 3 beautiful children, including being a full-time dance mom and exploring the world with your hubby, the pilot. Best wishes, Erin. Julie. What students and colleagues will miss about Julie Jensen: her hard work ethic for and loyalty and dedication to her students and colleagues. Her true enthusiasm for her subject matter, coupled with her incredible content knowledge and unmatched organizational skills. Collaboration and collegiality, always willing to share her materials and knowledge with her coworkers, and an incredible sounding board too. Mentorship and a pay-it-forward mindset to her profession. Number 5, always a team player, has the best interests of the team before herself, including one year when we asked her to teach French, her minor, and that she never taught, she did it. So thank you, extra special for that. And last, not least, whether a student or colleague, you could always count on the dependable Miss Jensen. Julie, now you can go on those Disney and transatlantic cruises, go back to Paris and continue to visit Seattle and Florida, own that flower shop, buy a house with horses, and even discover that second act. You can sleep more, take care of many more dogs and cats, and most importantly, you can spend more quality time with your parents and, of course, Tate. Truly enjoy, Julie.
Okay. Susan Pascarella, come on up. So I have the pleasure of honoring Susan Pascarella as she moves on to bigger and better things. So fun fact, I actually met Susan 10 years ago as a parent. She was across the table at my son's IEP and was his speech therapist. She was a ray of sunshine then. She's a ray of sunshine now. And more importantly, I want to mention that we know that every child needs a champion. But for those of us that have kids that have more complex needs or special needs, we know they need a team of champions. And we are so grateful. I know I speak for every parent that we were happy to have you as a champion for our kids. I know that Susan and her wonderful husband have bought a house in Fenton on the water, and you can tell from their pictures they're already enjoying that. We wish you all the best.
Every year I got to follow Tony. Hardy, come on up here. All right. So I'll be the first thing I say to you and the last thing I say to you. So I have the honor to recognize Julie Hardy. I've kind of gone through and posted some of the things that she has said that she's looking forward to, some of the things that her colleagues have discussed in memories. And I want to maybe tell a story or two and kind of encapsulate who Julie is. First and foremost, Dr. Weber mentioned, a teacher's need for flexibility, which I think in a career of 30 years, as long as I've known her, Julie has taught one thing and one thing only, U.S. history, except for COVID, when she kind of volunteered to be the online teacher. And I said, Julie, I can make that happen for you, but I need you to teach science to seventh graders. She did it for a whole year. And the second story is even in her last year, she has remained a teacher of kids and a teacher of adults. So she had a student teacher this year in her final year, kind of passing on all of that knowledge. And at the end, for all of our intern teachers, I always make the offer for a mock interview because they're going out into the world. They need to know what it's like to sit down at the table in front of the principal and answer all of those questions. So we sat in the conference room and Julie joined me as, kind of the teacher as we, fired questions at this poor kid who tried to prepare and had everything as ready as she could possibly be. And my first question for intern teachers and for teachers when I interview is, why do you teach? And it's so much better than tell us about yourself or, give us the recap of your resume. And she stumbled. She was nervous. She couldn't quite get there. And I said, Julie, why do you teach? She said, I was born to teach. I knew I was going to teach ever since I was a little girl. I said, that's the right answer. So thank you for teaching to the very end, for being our bright ray of sunshine and our party hardiest social chair around here, and for everything you've done for kids. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, good evening. It's not afternoon anymore. It's been a long day here. But I have the pleasure and the honor of recognizing three incredible ladies, and I'd like to welcome them up here, Sally Berger, Kimberly Kraus, and Kimberly Smith. I'm here, it's good. We're good. So usually when I have the honor to speak of retirees, I always mention to the crew here that we call ourselves Team Cook. So it's important for our culture because when we have over 100 people that serve under a 200 students, we work really closely together. And these three ladies are representatives of sort of three walks of the people that serve us at Cook. So I have a paraeducator, I have a teacher, and I have an ancillary staff member. And all of them do something, they bring something that is incredible for kids. But again, it's really difficult to think, how do we all cross our paths and what's important about what we share together? And so I usually will think of a quote and tie it all together, but I decided, well, actually, I couldn't decide on one. So I decided to choose three. So I will close each one of them with a special quote. But I will tell you how I've spent some time with these ladies that are a little bit silly. So I actually had the privilege of being in the dunk tank and playing basketball with Sally. I had the privilege of singing a song about reading with Kim during Reading Month. And I had the privilege of serving food for our students during COVID with Kim. And so all of these things are different, intersecting, but really important for our students. So I'm going to start with Sally Berger. So what we know about Sally is that I stole her from Berger. She became a social worker, was a social worker in Detroit, and then she also was a social worker at Berger before she started working at Cook. She gave me a call and said, I have a student that used to be ours, and we talked about that student, and I gave her some information. And so through that conversation, I happen to mention that if you're not having a really great time there, we are hiring a behavior staff, and I'd love to see you come on over. So she did. So much to Berger's loss. But what Sally brings is really that energy and love for our most complex kids. And you can see Sally here just giving that affection and that one-on-one with some of our toughest students because they become the most precious connections. Every year as we look at staff and student basketball games, Sally brought a very competitive, realistic game where the students really do always win, but Sally gave it a run for her money. So we won't ever have the basketball game that's the same without that. Sally is her laughter in the hallway is something that people will remember. And clearly, you can see that those connections are not just with students, but with staff. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to ever get anybody else in the dunk tank after COVID, but maybe I'll call Sally after that. So Sally also is a homeowner. She's sold her house recently, and she's flipping houses as we speak. She's working on a new home, and so she's looking forward to not dunk tanks, but time spent with her family. Her son Caleb, her nieces and nephews. She's the youngest of a large family, and she is planning new adventures and hopefully travels with Sheila. So congratulations, Sally. And I'll close with your poem in a moment, all right? Okay. So here's your poem. Retirement is wonderful. It's doing nothing and worrying about getting caught at it. Without that thought, I would expect that Sally would enjoy getting caught at anything, just because I think I fired her 3 or 4 times. But we will really miss her because she has been the life force of Cook. So thanks very much.
All right. Next, I want to talk about Kim Kraus. Thank you. So again, Kim is a person that brings life to everything that she does. She's a laugher. She is a server to our students. She loves interacting with each and every one of them. She's worked in our SXI and our SCI programs, really intensely working with the students that need that hands-on care. She will volunteer, and still does, for anything if you ask her to. When we were in COVID, as I said, she would not want to stay at home and do nothing. She asked me every day until we actually were allowing people in the building, can I come in? Can I help? What can I do for you? That's how she is on every committee, every classroom, giving 110%. And so that's really important for our students because she knows the care that they need and she's committed to giving that. She's worked in incredibly hardworking teams and given her all to them. And when she left us, we really, really missed that work. So Kim is looking forward to and enjoying since December time with Randy and her two grandchildren, Kennedy and Cassidy. So you're that full-time grandma, which is a support to them, to our loss, but to their gain, and certainly time spending with your daughter and your son-in-law. So we think that her positive energy is something that we still see. Occasionally she will pop in and visit us, but any cause, we know that you would be there if we called you in a minute. So I thank you for your time and your service at Cook. And so Kim, your poem is from Abraham Lincoln. In the end, it's not the years in your life that count, but it's the life in your years. And you certainly have brought that. You didn't come to Cook a day without that smile that brought the life that we have at Cook. So thank you so much for sharing it. All right. Finally, Kim Smith, my singer in charge. So I want to tell you a little bit more about that song that Kim and I sang. She is the youngest teacher in or was after this this year, the youngest teacher in our GD department, and she has the youngest students rather. And those students, thank you. So those students obviously are looking at, they're in the elementary age, and she is working on reading with them. So during our reading month, we decided that we wanted to perform for them. So she said, I wanted to sing a song with you. And I said, wow, that would be great. So we sang a song about roar is what she said. Let's sing to roar. And I said, okay, great. She gave me the words. They were changed a little bit to, I thought, Katy Perry's roar. So I was reading the words along with our reading committee, but then she said, I said, I can't really figure out how the words go with this. It's not really ringing with Katy Perry. And she said, well, not that song. We're going to sing I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar. So we finally changed the song, and she braved the middle of the floor with me as we sang during our reading month celebration. So Kim also has a farm. She has that she brings her animals to school to help teach her students. And during activities, you can see her staff is dressed as chickens. They may or may not have brought a wagon full of chickens during our PBIS parade. But that spirit, that energy that Kim brings is really that hands-on learning for our youngest learners. At fundraisers, Kim would bring dozens, and I do mean dozens, of cookies, which she would bake after she worked her second or third shift of the day. She's worked, as far as I've known her, both as a teacher, but then worked immediately after, and then continued to work 7 days a week. This is the hardest working lady I have ever met. So those animals, I'm really hoping that she will continue to bring back, but we know that she will do anything to support her students, and we are going to really miss her, but she's going to be spending time with her son, her daughter-in-law, and her grandson, Bryce, who is the light of her life. Congratulations, Kim. All right. And so that last but not least, that unknown quote for Kim, who told me a really inappropriate joke that I won't tell here, but here's your joke, Kim. What do you call a person who is happy on a Monday? Retired. We hope that all of you guys are happy. Congratulations, Sally, Kim, and Kat.
Linda, Linda, Linda. I am excited and sad all at the same time to talk about the director of First Impressions at Ammerman Elementary, who brightens the office on a daily basis, not only with her smile, but always with a bit of sparkle at times too. She is definitely known for a bit of sparkle, and that definitely just is Linda. You can't think about Linda without smiling. She is probably one of the kindest souls that I know. And she will be missed more than I can say within the little walls of our office. And it's hard to believe that she has been there for 20 years at Ammerman, 25 years in the district. And I am very excited for her and her husband to start their new journey together. Her husband, Steve, retired about 2.5 weeks ago, if I'm correct on that. So they're starting this journey together, this next chapter in their lives. And I'm so excited for you, Linda. Congratulations.
Okay, I would like to call Sharon May to the podium, please. So Sharon May is the epitome of tenacity. I'm not even sure if Sharon knew that about herself until about 3 years ago when we hit COVID. Because our world was turned upside down, everyone's was. And so Sharon was put in the position of having to become a virtual teacher like everybody, and then took on that responsibility for the full school year after, and had to learn everything as though she was teaching for the first time. And I just remember when I would pop into Sharon's virtual classroom, that sense of peace that I felt. I mean, you remember that was a time of great anxiety and grief, and everybody was just trying to keep it together. And I would go into your classroom and I would hear Sharon, talking. She has this very calm and patient way with her student. Oh, sweetie, it's not your turn yet. Honey, nope, that's not right. And it was just, it was as if we were in your classroom, in person. And it's just the person you are, and it's the relationships that you make with your students. And fast forward a few years later, it brings us to this year, which would have been, Sharon's final year, right before her retirement, which for many teachers is a time of great excitement and celebration. And Sharon was met with an unexpected situation where she had to take a leave of absence. And you had already created that bond with your students. And your absence was felt. It was felt by them. It was felt by all of us. And it just goes to show you, I mean, your legacy is going to live on, long beyond this year. You are Ridgewood. I mean, Sharon was at Ridgewood in 2003 when it was built. So long before many of us were at Ridgewood, you were there. So you will always be a rocket, and we're going to miss you very much. And I do wish you all the best in your retirement with your son and your daughter. You have a wedding coming up, so it's so much joy and excitement. Your son getting married, and we just know that it's going to be an amazing journey for you. And we thank you for all of your years of service.
And I'd also like to recognize we have a number of retirees tonight. David, who weren't here with us, David Babich, Nicole Bolt, Deborah Fetter, Susan Johnson, Christine Lilinski, Deborah Largis, Dawn McGuffin, Suzanne Meniart, Christine Chungek, Therese Wesley, and a 25-year recognition who wasn't able to be with us tonight, and that is Lisa Lindsay. So President Wilson, that concludes this part of it, but I'm sure the board has a few things you'd like to say before you go ahead with that resolution. So thank you.
Absolutely. I think on behalf of the board, I speak wholeheartedly when I thank each of you for your service, your dedication, your energy, obvious passion. I think it's pretty obvious that at each of these buildings, at each of these places, there are going to be holes left behind where incredible individuals once served. We wish you the best in your retirements. I took a list here before we do have one more formality before we let you exhale, sleep. Some of the things I saw: have fun, watch more basketball, cruise, get on to your second act, travel, thrifting, new languages, potentially Italian. So our best wishes and enjoy your retirement. Any other comments before we vote on this? Unfortunately. All right, Dr. Campbell-Boytow, roll call, please.
Happy to. Prescott,
Yes.
McIntyre,
Yes.
Missouric is not here, Meyer,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Wilson,
Yes.
and Campbell-Boytow, I am a yes.
Congratulations on behalf of the board. Wish you the best in retirement. Let's give them a And that brings us to our first of two opportunities for public comment. We give 3 minutes for you to come before the board and comment on whatever issues you see fit to talk about. I do not have any cards up here. Ms. Irving, do you? All right, well, going once, going twice. That closes our first, again, of two opportunities for public comment, and that brings us to number 10 on our agenda. That would be our report on progress toward our educational goals. And in Mr. Mazurik's absence, I will hand it over to Ms. Prescott.
Wonderful, thank you. This is motion number 119. I would move that the board accept the June 2023 report on progress toward 2022-2023 educational goals pursuant to Public Act 48 of 2021, Section 98B, as presented.
Support.
So I have a motion properly presented by Ms. Prescott and supported by Ms. McIntyre. We've all had an opportunity to read and review the progress report, but any comments from board members? Or presentation at all?
Just an opportunity to ask any questions you may have. Just a reminder, this is a report required by current school code 104D, which requires mid-year, which you recall in February, and by the last board meeting of the school year in June, that the board be updated on the progress towards goals. We do anticipate this will be the last year that this plan will be required. This is a resultant from COVID learning, pandemic learning. And so we do not see this going forward, but as required by law, we're presenting our goals, which are set every year prior to COVID even, and the progress towards those goals, which include a look at our NWA scores, which is required by the state of Michigan for K-8. And then as a result of just being thorough, we just take this opportunity to also include other data that's not required by law, which includes around our MTSS, our screeners, our MTSS data as far as our high school concerned go. Our PSAT and SAT scores have not yet been released, so those have not been updated, but will be. This will be placed, if it's approved tonight, will be placed on the district's transparency page tomorrow, and then those PSAT scores will be updated as soon as they become released. So happy to share with you anything you'd like to go through, but this is something that I know you've had a chance to see before. This is simply updated with the column spring 22-23 reading and math for our general students, our special ed students, and our ELL students.
Any questions?
Just a comment. It just brings to mind once again that we've come through, since this is a COVID-related obligation on our part to report these scores, we've come through COVID with our kids intact. The NWEA scores and performance for our kids didn't wobble much. And if there was a little wobble, it was in an unusual or, in, a minor point or in small areas. But as a district, our kids have continued to demonstrate academic success. And I guess it's just a tribute to the teachers and the leadership in the buildings, and also the central office team that has stayed the course and pulled together the resources when those kids were remote, or to the board actually that predates those of us who are the newest members, who made really solid decisions about getting kids maximally back in the buildings in a safe manner. And I never want to miss an opportunity to acknowledge all of that heavy lifting, that work, and the extreme effort that it took for everybody from top to bottom in this district to see the kids continue to learn. And so I'm proud to just draw some attention to that tonight. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I just had some some knowledge questions.
Sure.
That I'm just curious about for information myself. The ELL students, how does the program work in terms of if we get a student in, let's say, third grade, how are they still determined to be ELL? Do they come out of the program? Because what I'm wondering about is year over year, if you're looking at ELL students, you're probably looking at a different group of students, or we may have a student who enters the district in seventh grade who hasn't, new to our district, maybe even the country. So I'm just wondering a little bit about that program, if you could explain it to me.
And Ms. Sanders can certainly add to this, but I will tell you that we certainly have larger numbers at kindergarten, and those numbers go down significantly throughout the 8th grade. You'll see in some of the data even listing that anytime there's less than 20 students, we've made note of that because the group is different. So we are looking at the general group, but it could be 75 kindergartners and 15 8th graders because those students have progressed out of ELL support.
So in general, are you saying that the students enter as the largest cohort is usually in kindergarten?
Well, I don't know that that's always the largest, but it is certainly larger in the bottom and thinner at the top because those students have worked their way out of that support. But Sandra, want to add anything?
Yeah, absolutely. So to answer your specific question, when we have a student that moves in, as part of the enrollment, they're asked a couple of questions that would trigger an ELL eval. And so there's a time limit that when they move in, that our ELL staff have a certain time limit where they have to assess that student. It's within the first 10 days. And then they learn from the evaluation what level of support that student needs. And so depending on what level they're at elementary, it could be that pull-out support. It could be push-in support. It just depends on where they rank in their eligibility on the WIDA. And then at middle and high school, they have specific support classes. They have classes for newcomers, but they also have higher level classes for reading and writing. So if a child has maybe moved in from another country, but understands English, can speak English at a certain level of proficiency, but needs help with those higher level reading skills or problem solving skills, we have classes that are specific for that.
So any students who receive any type of services would fall under this category when you're giving us the data regarding that group?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
they
it's
would
much
be
like
tagged that way if they were receiving any of those supports. They would be identified in this cohort.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's similar to a special education eval, if you know that world, which I know you do.
Well, my second question was about the special education students who is there an alternative assessment for the NWA for students who would not be able to take the NWA?
So we do have a population of students that would take MI Access. And they really are taking that instead of MSTEP and SAT, PSAT. So they take it third through 8th, and then they take it as 11th graders. And they take the exact same content area as a gen ed student would. So if a third grader is taking ELA math and science, then an MI Access student is taking the same categories, but just adapted at their level. And then MI Access has 3 different levels: functional independence, supported independence, and participation. And those decisions are made through the IEP process.
But I would reinforce that the majority of our students who have IEPs are going to take NWEA as often as possible. As a matter of fact, in the high school level, they're the only group we give the NWEA to are our students who require additional support so that we can continue to monitor them. We don't give the NWEA in 9th, 10th, 11th grade. We really don't give it in 8th grade until the state required it because we give PSAT both fall and spring for those students. So the NWEA continues to be given for many of those students if they're capable of taking the test.
And just a comment, but when I was looking into this, did you know, Dr. Weber, that you're quoted on the NWEA website?
That's one of the difficult things of being in the business as long as I've been in. Right? Let's not do Google or encourage Google searches on where I
wasn't
pop
Google
up.
searching you. I was looking up the NWEA, and I happened to see you being quoted in the capacity of your former job.
Yeah. Thanks, Ms. Meyer.
Can I ask just what will be turning to the PSAT and SAT? And you gave us that really nice presentation. Was it last week? Gosh.
Yeah, about the electronic version.
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think you said the scores would be reported out. It's like the same. I know it's not starting until the spring. First of all.
Fall.
Oh, it is starting.
Starts
in
in the fall, yep.
Is okay.
The
In case-
SAT is not digital until the spring, but we don't give it in the fall, so it wouldn't affect
Okay.
us.
In any case, the scoring will be the same. Do you just
1600.
expect to just kind of present this, just like no change happened?
That's what we hope for. I mean, the test for this test we just took will be the same test they've always taken. But yes, in the fall, we hope to add to this chart the next column and give you just the same scores. So when you see a 980 or a 1040, it means the same thing. That's what we've been told.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So it might not be the right time to ask this question, but I know that we've had resources to support summer school. And we've accommodated all comers, I believe. We've had enough space and resources to help kids as part of, our COVID response to supporting learning. Is there any way that these RIT scores, which are achievement scores, right? Am I understanding the score right?
Yeah, I mean, it's their growth over time. Yeah. Their RIT scores indicate the level at which they've moved to. We track them over time.
Have you seen any effect of this enriched summer school opportunity and the way the scores?
Certainly for our most struggling learners, I mean, that's who we encourage most to be in our summer school program. It's not exclusive to them, but it is the kids we encouraged, profusely with parents to say that you should take advantage of it. And we've certainly seen a benefit. We have funding for this summer and we have funding for next summer. And really after that, unless something happens in the foundation allowance or fund school aid budget or additional grant funding, that really is the end of what we see as what we've been able to offer. And this last 3 summers, we've been able to fund all of that with some sort of COVID or ESSER funding. That money is all starting to dry up. So if they don't provide an additional grant, it would be gone. And in the past, we have offered, prior to my arrival here 6 years ago, they offered it but didn't have a lot of participation. They cut it in the summer except for high school credit recovery. And then we offered it, for some of you may recall, about 4 years ago or so. We did it on a half tuition and a half non-tuition. It was one that was given to us at-risk money. So we charged some parents $200 to attend and others were free if they met the free reduced lunch guidelines. That was prior to COVID. So there are ways we can go about it. It's not like we can't offer it, but the way we offer it now is going to be difficult and expensive if we don't have some additional support.
And you say that you can see the effect in the.
Oh, certainly. Our MTSS teams track those kids who've gone. They're on what are called our get-go list. So at the end of this year, they're already identifying who the kids who need to start September 1. They're watching those kids who leave summer school and seeing if they're, what we know for sure is that those students at least don't lose anything at a minimum. But we do see some who have gains as well. And as you know, that summer slide that they refer to for kids who are in our most at-risk situations, they tend to lose something over the summer because they've been without school for 2.5 months. So to see them not lose anything is a win. To certainly see them not lose anything and gain is certainly more than a win to us. But we know that that is the case. Those kids who do the entire 4-week program, they do have a benefit.
I was curious to know a little bit about the MTSS high school data. was really curious to me to see, I mean, great progression, right, in terms of the number of kids that are needing intervention. So I was wondering a little bit about how the 30 kids who are, I believe those are the kids that are entering ninth grade this next school year, right? That number is obviously half of what we had this past year. So what do we attribute that growth? I mean, I feel like it's growth, right? That fewer kids are needing that more direct intervention. So what we're doing for all tiers is working. Is that the best way to understand that?
Yeah, actually, I appreciate that you looked at that. And for elementary, you'll also see the same trend when you look at fall to spring in the moderate to high risk. We also improve in those areas as well. And you're right. And the further we get away from COVID, it's certainly helpful. Although Aaron has pointed this out before, and it's true, we survived COVID pretty well in terms of our scores. But from an SEL's perspective, there's no doubt that the further we get away. But we've also, every year, we're also adding and differentiating those SEL supports and those tiered supports. And I'll just mention a few that we're looking ahead at. So when we look at the high school specifically, JD Keefe's been working with the high school team, and they've been adding more sections of learning consultant. And because they've added sections, they're also able to keep those class sizes at a very small size. So the max in those classes are 15. And we have classes that aren't even at that. The other thing I want to point out is that over the summer, JD is doing some summer work with some others in terms of aligning that study skills class curriculum to more of a intervention tier 2 support platform. And the goal, that will be running in fall. Now, the goal will be that in the future, they'll have a regular study skills class, which is what you would imagine study skills is. But then we'll also have intervention study skills. So we'll have 2 levels of it, but we're starting the intervention one in the fall. So every year, we also keep adding those supports. So next year's end of the year report, if we do one, then you'll see the results that include those supports.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Excellent. Great questions, great comments. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. Thank you very much. That passes. That brings us to number 11, and I will hand it over to our treasurer, Ms. McIntyre.
Okay. All right. I'd like to bring forth motion 120 that the board adopt the resolution ratifying the sale of Northville Public School District 2023 School Building and Site Bonds Series 1 as presented.
Support.
So I have a motion properly presented by Ms. McIntyre and supported by Ms. Prescott. Any discussion, some introduction on this? Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I think for the board members who have been on the board for a while, they're probably familiar with Matt Heiser. Matt is with Troon Law. Matt is our bond counsel, has been for probably about 10 years now, I believe. And also, I just wanted to also thank Matt for supporting the bond sale that occurred on June 7th. We had a tremendous student engagement event. It was really successful. Matt shared his experience, his role in the bond process, and I think all the students found it very interesting. So I'm just going to turn it over to Matt, let him go through the resolution that's before you right now.
Okay, thank you very much, Mike. As Mike mentioned, my name is Matt Heiser. I'm a finance and elections attorney with Troon Law Firm. Appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight to describe this resolution for you before you act on it. So I've been assisting the school district with the bond election that was approved by the voters on May 2nd. So congratulations for that. And then more recently, assisting the school district with the issuance of the first series of bonds that were authorized in that election. So hopefully you have the resolution before you. I'll just kind of go through paragraph by paragraph, just picking up on the highlights. So for this first series of bonds, the bond authorizing resolution was adopted by you back on May 9, as described in paragraph 1. And what that resolution did was it authorized the administration to move forward with the issuance of the bonds so that if the bonds were able to be sold subject to the parameters that were provided in that resolution, the superintendent and Mike had the authority to enter into a bond purchase agreement with the underwriters for the transaction, which were Stiefel Nicholas, supported by Raymond James and Associates.
And one of the conditions was that the school district's financial consulting firm, PFM Financial Advisors, had to recommend that the school district accept the offer from the underwriters, and that happened. And Dr. Weber signed the bond purchase agreement a couple of days later so that we could wait for an appeal period to expire. And the purpose of this resolution is just for you to ratify his actions in signing that bond purchase agreement. So moving down to paragraph 1, under now therefore, this is where the board is ratifying Dr. Weber's signing of the bond purchase agreement. And it's also noting the amount of bonding authority that remains after the issuance of the first series of bonds, which is $67 million and change. And I think those bonds will be sold in 2025. Yep. It's scheduled to be sold. So, and then moving down to paragraph 2, it provides the dated date for the bond issue, which will be June 22nd. That's the date we'll close the transaction. The school district will receive the bond proceeds. It's actually a very quick turnaround. I mean, usually we have kind of 3 weeks to close a bond issue. And this whole process, because the school district levies a summer tax on July 1, the bonds need to be issued before July 1. So from the May 2 election date to July 1, to get voter approval and sell this first series of bonds, is no small undertaking. So there's a lot of people that were involved in that, most especially the administration. So we appreciate everybody's assistance with that. Paragraph 2 also provides the interest payment dates and principal payment dates. And those are all, I'll just bring your attention to Exhibit A to the resolution, the last page. So in the first column, you see all the years in which portions of the bonds will mature. In the second column, it's the amount of bonds that will mature in each of those years. In the third column, it's the interest rate that the bonds were priced at. But most importantly, because the bonds were sold at a premium, the yield column is really the truest reflection of the pricing of the bond issue. And you'll note, it's very interesting, we're in kind of a strange market right now. Normally you would see the yield amounts increase as you move down the page. The yield curve is slightly inverted right now. So usually all those yields would increase, but kind of in the middle, they actually begin to go down, which worked well for the school district. So then moving to paragraph 3 of the resolution, it provides that certain of the bonds can be redeemed prior to maturity if interest rates at that time are low enough for it to make financial sense for the school district to refinance this bond issue. But that wouldn't be for any bondholders who purchase bonds maturing before 2034. And then just briefly, paragraph 5 just provides the notice requirements in the event that bonds are redeemed. Paragraph 6 authorizes blank bonds to be prepared if necessary. Paragraph 7 describes what would happen if bonds need to be transferred in the event that they are mutilated or lost. Never happens. And then paragraph 8, really the most important paragraph, provides what will happen with the bond proceeds when they're wire transferred to the school district on the June 22nd closing date. You'll see in 8A, $201,000 and change will be allocated to the costs of issuing the bonds, which includes our fee, the financial advisory fee, the rating fee. And I'd like to take that opportunity to mention, as you may know, that the school district had its rating upgraded as a result of this bond sale. You were AA minus, you're now AA even, which is an excellent credit rating for Michigan School District. That is equal to the state's credit rating. So if you're familiar with, not to get too much into the weeds, but if you're familiar with the school bond loan program that's administered by the Department of Treasury, most school districts have their bonds qualified for that program. Northville didn't have to. It actually made the decision not to, and then it had its rating upgraded to the same credit rating as the state's. So you didn't have to pay the cost to participate in that program, but your bonds were issued at the very same credit rating because of the financial condition of the school district. So congratulations for that. That saved the taxpayers some money. And then most importantly, in 8B, the amount of bond proceeds that will go into the capital projects fund, and that's $66,800,000 and change. And then paragraphs 9 and 10 just approve the offering document for the transaction, which we call an official statement. And then finally, paragraph 11 appoints Huntington National Bank to serve as the paying agent for the bond issue. So with that, does anyone have any questions on the resolution?
I don't have a question, but I wanted to say thank you for doing the bond sale presentation. Ms. McIntyre and I were able to attend that, and it was not only educational for the students that were there, but I was personally, I was blown away by the whole presentation. To have it broken down, by the financial side of it, but then to have the architects come in and the contractors and the project managers, and to hear not only about their role in our current, in Northville Public Schools bond, but then to hear the educational side, their path, their educational path to their current position, I thought was an amazing, it was an amazing experience for our students and for me also. I thought it was really well done. So thank you for putting that on, and thank you for being a part of it, and for that amazing opportunity for our high school students. I mean, how awesome was that?
Yeah, that's terrific. And I'll give Brody Killian of Cecil Nicholas props for really arranging for that. Brody was the one who orchestrated it. But it was insightful. I had not seen an order period for a number of years, so it's interesting to see the bond orders coming in from various investors for each of the maturities, and to see how oversubscribed we were, meaning there were more orders than bonds for many maturities, which is a great reflection on the school district. And I also had, while we were watching the orders come in on that smart board over on the side, there were 3 students that approached me, and they had all these questions, and they were, I mean, I've got a couple of daughters who I think are pretty impressive, and these 3 young men were extremely impressive. So.
I really want to underscore just, thank you both for such a great presentation, but also what a mark of achievement for Northville Public Schools to have an increase in a bond rating. That oftentimes in our meetings, we go back to 2013 and what dire straits the district was in, and I am just so thankful and proud of all of the hard work, all of the detailed efforts that have gone into just all of the focus, right, on making sure that we are a financially sound district so that we can go out and save taxpayers' money when we ask them to invest in our amazing product, which is also part of the buildings and the technology piece. I think the community also deserves some credit too, right? That we continue as a community to make sound decisions ourselves in terms of what we do to remain strong economically. There's obviously a strong demand for our enrollment in Northville Public Schools. That is a testament to all of our work and the community's work. So thank you also for acknowledging the fast turnaround, right? When I thought about, okay, in July last year, we brought in a new superintendent. In November, we had a pretty tense election in our community. And then we decided to go out for a bond right away, and the bond passed. Like, it's been, the wheels just keep churning so fast. So it takes a lot of energy from a lot of people, a lot of focus on the details. So just wanted to underscore that to the team.
Sure. You're going to get improvements like this. I drive by this building all the time, but this is the first time I've been in here. So, and I drive by with a little bit of pride. So,
yeah.
I just wanted to mention one thing. The ratings upgrade and the bond sale, the reception that we got in the market on June 7th was fantastic. And really, it's a reflection, I think, on how the board manages our resources, and also it's a reflection on our whole community. If you read the bond ratings report from Standard & Poor's, they certainly cited the strength of our local economy as a factor, and the support we get from our community really did not go unnoticed in that whole ratings process. So I just wanted to also mention that and thank our community and thank the board.
Huge thank you to the whole team on this, starting from the bond teams from last year through I'll call the bond mechanics teams this year, and the whole team that's kind of overseen the whole process of getting us to this point where we have this demonstrated financial stability that's really generated this awesome additional return that I didn't see coming, although I guess we all probably should have. But
I
thank you
think it's
so
a
much.
great physical manifestation, and using the word team is so important. All the people that I met that Michael has gotten to know, seeing Rebecca in action and Megan as far as comms and how we're going to do these things. Board members, taking videos of failing machinery and posting them to their buddies so they can see like we really need this money. But one thing that really caused me trepidation on the day of the sale is they made it very clear to us, like, this could go sideways. Like, depending on what happens, there may not be demand in the market. So we're all like, oh, I don't want this. The room's full of kids. I said, what happens when if that happens? Oh, we shut it down and pull out or something like that. So Mike and I are there, and then all of a sudden we start to see 3 times, 4 times, 6 times, 8 times. We clocked in at one of the issues at 10.1 times demand over. So it was like one of those moments, but Mike educated me and said how not typical it was and what a great moment it was. So it was really nice that we all got to share that moment together. I think for you who works in this to actually be part of it and see it as well. And thank you for linking it all back to where we are. I appreciate that.
Can I just ask for like the 15-second, or maybe, maybe I'll even just say it and do a leading question. So when you have 10x or 8.1x or whatever it is, and the yield curve is what it is compared to what the offer price is it that what's happening is an auction? Is that basically what's occurring, is that they're bidding it down in terms of what they'll accept?
Yeah, I think it would be better to describe it as a negotiation. It's literally people talking to people. It's the head underwriter at Stifel Nicholas on their trading desk in St. Louis, going back to all those investors and on a maturity by maturity basis, because there were several that were oversubscribed.
So there's like a call center, and they're like, well, so-and-so will give me 2.9. Will you give me whatever? Will you match that? Can you come under? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, I'm not privy to those conversations, but my understanding is, that lead underwriter, once we get to the end of the day and we see where the orders are, or they go back to the investors that have submitted orders for bonds maturing in each of those years. And for the years that are oversubscribed, they start negotiating the interest rate down. And
Okay, so that's what's that's the column.
We're at 3.5 right now. Are you still in at 3.4? That sort of thing.
Yeah, so it's a very, very slow auction.
It actually
like
goes,
basically
it goes a little bit, it's usually kind of a morning to early afternoon process, but everybody in that industry is familiar with how it works, and it goes surprisingly fast, but that's literally what's happening, and that's the benefit of having more orders than bonds in a particular maturity.
And then is the upshot that if we take the discount of the rate versus the yield, and we multiply that times the amount, that's the savings that's been realized by the district on the cost of borrowing?
I'm sorry.
Is that how you do it? Is basically if you take, we thought we'd sell it and give 4% interest, but instead the yield is 3.29. Then the district is saving that point, whatever it is, 7.1 or
sure.
whatever.
Yeah. So that
times the amount.
Yeah. So the true interest cost there. So there's a number of different rates provided, but I would say the benchmark for both negotiated and competitive sales is the true interest cost. So that was 3.9% and change, which was very competitive. So if your true interest cost is, just to pick a number, 4.1, that means that you price the bond issue, you had to sell your bonds at higher interest rates.
Yeah.
If the bonds are sold at higher interest rates, you have to levy more property taxes to generate enough revenue to make the principal and interest payment, to make really the interest payments on those bonds that were sold at what would have otherwise been higher rates.
Has someone done the math, or is that on page 3, which is 74 of our packet, that tells us the delta between what we offered them at versus what the negotiated final was and what the savings then will be? I thought I heard a number, but it might have just been a floated estimate.
Yeah, that would have been something that was prepared by PFM,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm curious what that is, just to be able to tell tell the constituents. I mean, thank you for the, sorry for the moment of you using your time, but thank you for helping.
Sure.
I think Vice President Prescott, the initial number we got from PFM was about $500,000 in savings to our taxpayers. And I think that's one of the huge stories going forward as we continue to ask, and as a board, as we continue to work together at looking at different cycles for when we go for bonds, is that this is a story that we have to memorialize in whatever way. That this combination of the school board, the city, the township, our team, everybody, we did about as well as you could to be good financial stewards in saving taxpayers' money. And I think $500,000 is the minimum number that you would see on that. To your other questions, we might need a little bit of time with PFM to get those answers.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I mean, the AA rating alone is evidence of that.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Excellent. Let's take a roll call on that, Dr. Campbell-Boytel, please.
Okay. McIntyre,
Yes.
Meyer.
Yes.
Meyer, Stewart,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson.
Yes.
Ms. Prescott.
Yes.
And I'm a yes, Campbell-Boytel.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That brings us to number 12 on our agenda, our bid awards. And again, I will hand it over to our treasurer, Ms. McIntyre, please.
Okay, I'd like to bring forth motion 121 that the board authorize the administration to award the following contracts. A civil engineering design services by Spalding to Decker for pavement design services totaling $102,600, funded by Bond 2023 Series 1. B, NHS baseball and softball design services by Foresight Design for $148,000, funded by Bond 2023 Series 1. And C, roofing replacement design by Building Technology Associates for sections of roofing at Ammerman, Northville High School, and the Technology and Operations Building, totaling $78,750 as presented.
Support.
So I have a motion properly presented by Ms. McIntyre and supported by Dr. Campbell-Boytel. Do we have any presentation or discussion on this?
I would just say, I think she read it in as 78. I think it's 68,
Oh.
at least on mine. Is that?
Oh, yeah, did I say 78? Oh, my bad, 68.
Thank you for clarification, yeah.
No problem. I
Yes,
listened to
Ms. Stewart.
Is that right?
I just had a question about the baseball fields. Is the intent that they would be worked on and completed next summer? Like it would begin next summer and end next summer?
By next summer of 20,
Yeah, 24.
24.
I'm trying to find where, when I was looking at it earlier, I thought it said
right.
something about 24, but I was just wondering if the fields that we currently have will be usable next spring.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The current field we have, yes. I
So they'll
mean,
be using the grass fields this coming,
right. The regular turf field will be available until,
so that the project in and of itself, the construction of it, for lack of a better word, would be just over the summer.
Right.
Okay.
so, basically now we're spending some of the bond money we just received. But it's funny because right after the bond passed, I've got a couple of calls from people just, when are we going to start? How come we're not seeing, heavy equipment out there on the field right now? So anyway, this is for design and engineering. So this is really the precursor to bidding out these projects. So in all three of these service providers we worked with on Bond 2017 projects. So we're very familiar with them. They're familiar with us. So the proposal is we would go ahead and continue that relationship with them.
Yeah.
All right.
good.
And just for the sake of the record, just to clarify a couple of things. So this was motion number 121, properly presented by Ms. McIntyre and as clarified by Ms. Prescott and supported by Ms. Stewart. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So that motion passes. Thank you so much. And that brings us to number 13. Again, I will hand it over to our treasurer.
Okay, I'd like to bring forth motion 122 that the board authorize the administration to renew the contract with Durham Transportation Services for the 23-24 school year as presented.
Support.
All right, I have a motion properly presented by Ms. McIntyre and supported by Ms. Prescott. Any presentation or discussion on this item?
Okay, so with this one, as you know, this past school year, we did a little better with staffing for drivers. We still are not where we need to be. Our starting rate this past year was $21.50 an hour. We know that our neighbor next door at Plymouth Canton, they also have Durham. They indicated that next year they've already negotiated. They're going to raise their starting rate to $23. So one of the concerns we have is that, obviously what we don't want to do is lose drivers. We want to make sure we're competitive in that market. Trying to get drivers is very difficult. So what we're proposing here and what Durham has proposed to us is an increase of 4.5% for next year. That would raise the starting rate from $21.50 to $23 for drivers. It's still not where Ann Arbor is, but in talking with our Durham regional manager, he feels that as long as we're competitive with Plymouth, we should be fine for next year. So anyway, that's kind of what they're proposing. I certainly don't want to go into the year with a rate less than Plymouth, and I would recommend that, a 4.5% increase is probably, the best we're going to do at this point. I don't know if there was any questions on Durham. We've had Durham for some of the newer board members since 2011. So this would be our 11th amendment with them. So we kind of go on almost like a year by year basis. We were a little concerned going into this past year because there was a new GM, a new site manager in Durham, who'd never been a site manager before. So we were a bit concerned, but I think he's worked out exceptionally well, has a great relationship with the staff. So that seems to be going well. And hopefully that we've had another discussion with their corporate manager probably maybe a few weeks ago. And one of the concerns we have is that we would like to get a little more support from the corporate end in terms of recruiting, because it's very difficult if they leave it in the hands of the local site manager. He's trying to, manage the day-to-day. So we're asking them to kind of step up their efforts to help with recruiting from their corporate office. So hopefully they kind of committed to doing that for us. So hopefully that, in combination with the higher rate, will again put us maybe even a little bit better position for drivers next year than what we had this year.
And do we think this will help us at all with any of those field trips or athletic events and that kind of thing? Or is that totally independent of that?
Yeah, one of the things that we've kind of struggled with this year, primarily with the athletic trips, they have just the timing of the KLAA events. Because we have 3 tiers, we don't have enough drivers to be able to. We can provide the equipment, but we don't have enough drivers to transport our athletic teams if they have like start times at 3 o'clock or 3:30, something like that. So we've had to use a lot more charters. That was one. This is one thing in the proposal for Durham is that they want to keep it efficient. They're going to give us $10,000 to help offset some of the charter costs. So hopefully.
Okay.
Excellent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent, that passes. Thank you so much. That brings us to number 14. In the absence of Mr. Mazurek, do Do I have any takers on this one? Ms. Prescott, would you do the honors?
Sure thing, happy to. I would bring motion 123 that the board authorize the administration to update and purchase new reading materials for all Northville schools media centers for all students grade K through 26, funded through 11T ESSER 3 federal funding as presented.
Support.
Second.
It's going to be a tough one. So I have a motion properly presented by Ms. Prescott and supported, I believe, by Ms. McIntyre. Was that right? You did support that. All right. Any presentation or discussion on this item?
Moving forward again, just K-5 at this time, with the middle school and high school to be done next year.
I mentioned this at the committee of the whole meeting, but I was able, Dr. Brock opened it up to the curriculum committee to come in and review any of the samples of the books. And I took her up on that and spent a very happy hour reading picture books. And I think the list that has been presented is varied. There are offerings for STEAM jobs and learning about what it takes to be a botanist. And then all the way over to learning about different countries. And then also there were a lot of books. Our media specialist said, you know, these are the books that are flying off the shelves and we can't keep in stock. And so some of those titles are on here. I think it's an amazing list. And I think the committee has done a great job putting this list together.
Very well said. I remember the list from last week, and I agree it is amazing. Very good way to describe it. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Thank you so much. That brings us to number 15 on our agenda, and I will again hand that over to Ms. McIntyre, please.
Actually, Ms. Prescott is the.
Is that right?
It's just a
I'm
typo.
just looking
I'm
right at the
happy to
name.
bring it.
Okay.
It's fine. It's 124. I would move that the board authorize the administration to approve the non-affiliated individual employee and central office leadership team contracts as presented.
Support.
All right, so I have a motion properly presented by Ms. Prescott and supported by Ms. Stewart. Any discussion or presentation on this item? We've had, actually, this goes back a couple of weeks. We've had a lot of information about this one. Any questions, last minute questions? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So the motion passes. Thank you on that. And that brings us to number 16, our superintendent contract. So I will bring this motion 125 that the board approve the superintendent's contract effective July 1, 2022 through June 30, 2025 on the terms and conditions as presented.
Support.
So I have a motion properly presented, number 125, and supported by Dr. Campbell Voitel. I think I want to thank and offer up for questions, Ms. Pack. Thank you for walking me through so much of the mechanics of this and other contracts over the last couple of weeks. I really appreciate it. We had I thought, a really good description of the things we're looking at in connection with item number 16 here. Any questions from folks? I think I understand it, but any questions? Excellent. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So the motion passes. Thank you for that. And that brings us to number 17. Any added agenda items, Ms. Irving? Dr. Weber, anyone else?
No, I was just going to say thank you on those last two votes to the board. And thinking about that, your faith in our team is deeply appreciated, and hopefully the evidence that we've put together this year. And we will continue to put together and finding not only value for our community, but really helping this become an even better place to serve and to be. So thank you. I'm very grateful. On behalf of my whole team, I'm grateful.
Excellent. That brings us to, as promised, our second of two opportunities for public comment. I will look to the public here. That closes our second opportunity for public comment, and that brings us to number 19, questions, comments from board members. Do we have any tonight on this long, excellent evening?
I do have one small
Absolutely.
comment to make. And this is in regard to the wonderful monthly reports we get from NYN, Northville Youth Network. And I'm just looking at the May referrals, and particularly there's three tables, the middle of the second table, which is the referrals that come from NPS or law enforcement. And it's page 2 of that report. I don't have can't direct you in the packet, but there's the top two reasons that are on the table for referrals from NPS and law enforcement. Number one, 40% of the referrals are related to racial and cultural insensitivity. And, you know, we all have our fingers up in the wind. We're gathering data, filtering data, being as sensitive as we can to the conversations that we have with parents and teachers in this district and leaders and principals, all of us. I just want to say out loud that I'm noticing that these referrals, of 40% of the referrals that come are related to that issue. And I can speak for myself, it's a concern. And I know that there's progress being made in terms of effective restorative practices in our buildings, and that it is valuable not only to support and grow a cohesive school culture for our students, but also for our staff, and that in all our personnel at all levels, that this is an important philosophical approach to currying sensitivity and respect. And I'm just glad that we're taking positive action to address this in our district. So thank you for that.
And I think, I don't know if it was Vice President Prescott or maybe Miss McIntyre a couple weeks ago who'd commented that, you know, seeing a rise in these things is, some people would see that maybe as a negative. However, what I believe one of you said was actually that's an indication that we're going toward this, knowing that it's here, and knowing that we want to go toward that potential conflict or work on this because it truly is that important. So whoever said that, thank you for noting that, because I think some folks in the public may see a rise and think what's going on. My argument would be what's going on is we're going at it. And unfortunately, these issues have been with us from time immemorial. Doesn't mean we shouldn't try to change them, though. Thank you.
Can I add something to that? So Amy Prevost is going to be at our next board meeting, but just to kind of give a little bit more context to that. So that was a category that was added this year. It used to be captured under a different category of poor decision-making. And NYN has done a really great job in terms of also developing a curriculum and a framework where they can have, when we have racial sensitivity or insensitivity in general, because it isn't always racial. It can be body shaming. It can be LGBTQ. Is that right? LG. There's too many letters and it's too late. But you know what I mean. So when we have those kind of issues, that they are able to work more individually and in small groups with those students. And they just finished their first 4 week, because the first week is an intake, where it was very successful. And they're starting their next one. And when she's here at the next board meeting, she can speak more on it.
That'll be wonderful. I also understand that the parents participate with their children in these small group intervention. And so I think that that's a valuable element too, I think. So thank you for bringing her to us to speak to it.
Beth, that's 6/27 is our next meeting. That's what you're talking about, the 6/27 meeting. Great, thank you. Very timely.
Excellent. Yeah, you know what? I just want to once again thank the team, Mr. Zoff, Ms. Peck, for the help on the contracts 15 and 16 tonight. I also want to say to Dr. Weber, I really want to thank you as well for sort of your demonstrated generosity, flexibility, and also just sort of some of the things that you did in light of the bigger picture and what that means. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you, President Wilson.
And we don't have a meeting next week because I will be out of town. Okay. Excellent. Any other? I just wanted to make sure. Yep. That's right. This is one I can't cancel. Any other questions or comments from board members? All right. Well, I will call us adjourned then at 9:04. Thank you so much.
Well done.